Being a beginner in Warzone can be pretty difficult, from knowing the best weapon to use to the best perk to use. I'm going to help you out with that by showing you the best and easiest to use loadout possible that's going to result in you getting more kills and more wins. Hi guys, it's BillyCrock, or just Billy here. Welcome back to another video and welcome back to the channel. My subscribers know me for the no nonsense guides, where I'm going to keep a video as short as possible and not include all that fluff that other content creators add in. So if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn the notifications bell on to make sure you stay up to date with all the best Warzone guides. I'm going to talk you through the best loadout to use that is accessible without doing any unlock challenges, so you can get stuck into using these guns straight away. So with that in mind, let's get into the loadout. For the primary, we're going to take an assault rifle, the Krig 6 specifically. And for the secondary, an SMG, the Bullfrog. I'll get into the attachments for both of these guns shortly, but for the perks, we'll be running EOD, Overkill, and Amped. For the lethal, we'll be running the Semtex, and for the tactical, a heartbeat sensor. I'll break all these perks and tacticals and lethals down in more detail later on, but let's get into the attachments for the Krig 6. I'll show you the early level, the mid level, and the fully leveled gun attachments, so you can get the best out of the gun from the get-go and through various stages of leveling that gun. What makes the Krig 6 so good is it has a higher rate of fire than some other assault rifles, so if you do miss some of your shots, you're not going to be punished too hard. The time to kill is pretty competitive, and its recoil is really easy to control, and therefore is the most effective beginner weapon that even more experienced players still use, as it remains competitive across the skill range. Now, there are 3 key areas that you need to focus on when building the majority of assault rifles. This is range, recoil, and ammunition. So for the early level attachments, we will be running the following. For the muzzle, the Flashguard 5.56. For the barrel, the 16.5 inch ultralight. For the optic, the Vision Tech 2x zoom. For the underbarrel, the foregrip. And for the magazine, the 45 round mag. And moving on to the mid-level attachments. For the muzzle, the suppressor. For the barrel, the 15.5 inch contour. For the optic, the axial arms 3x zoom. And then for the underbarrel, the foregrip. And for the magazine, the 45 round mag. And moving on to the fully leveled gun attachments. For the muzzle, we're taking the agency suppressor, as this helps out with sound suppression, vertical recoil control, bullet velocity, and effective damage range. And moving over to the barrel, we are taking the 19.7 inch Ranger, as this helps out with bullet velocity and vertical recoil control. Now, you might be considering taking the 15 inch CMV mil spec, but ultimately this hinders your ADS speed too much, so just take the 19.7 inch Ranger. And then moving on to the optic, we are taking the axial arms 3x zoom, as this helps out with seeing your enemies from quite a far distance. And then moving on to the underbarrel, we are taking the field agent grip, as this helps out the most with recoil control. And then lastly, moving over to the magazine, we are taking the Stanag 60 round mag. You don't want to be taking the fast magazines, as they do hinder your ADS speed just too much. Now let's move on to the secondary weapon, the Bullfrog. What makes this gun really effective to use is its high base magazine, potentially freeing up another attachment slot, great mobility, comparable time to kill, and a really great iron sight, again freeing up another attachment slot. It's worth keeping in mind there are 3 key areas when building an SMG to focus on: mobility, damage, and ammunition. So with that in mind, let's move on to the early level attachments. For the muzzle, we're going to be taking the Flashguard 9. For the barrel, the 7.1 inch extended. For the laser, the steady aim laser. For the stock, tactical stock. And for the underbarrel, foregrip. And now moving on to the mid-level attachments, we're going for the muzzle, the sound suppressor. For the barrel, the 6.7 inch VDV reinforced. For the laser, the mounted flashlight. For the stock, no stock. And for the underbarrel, the red cell foregrip. And moving on to the fully leveled attachments. For the muzzle, we are taking the sound suppressor to assist with sound suppression, ADS speed, bullet velocity, and sprint to fire speed. And then moving on to the barrel, we are taking the 7.4 inch task force barrel to help out with effective damage range, bullet velocity, and strafe speed. This does hinder your recoil control, but if you're finding you're too inaccurate with an SMG, you probably want to be switching to your assault rifle. And moving on to the laser, we are taking the Tiger Team Spotlight. This helps out with your movement speed and aim walking movement speed. And then moving over to your stock, personally I take the KGB skeletal stock, and I think that's probably the best option for you as well, as it helps out with ADS firing move speed, aim walking movement speed, and sprint to fire. And then lastly, moving on to the underbarrel, we are taking the Bruiser grip. This helps out with movement speed and hip fire accuracy. Now that the guns are out of the way, let's move on to perks. Perks are really changeable based on gameplay style, but ultimately there are 3 core perks that you want to be taking as a beginner. For perk 1, we will take EOD. This reduces the amount of explosive damage you will take, and therefore really key if you're pushing buildings or if you're being pushed. It's worth noting double time is also a really good perk, but I wouldn't say it's really that good until you master slide cancelling, get really good at movement, or even just get to grips with repositioning well. And now moving on to perk 2, we will take Overkill. This is until we take our second loadout in the game, where we will take Ghost. This is to keep you off the minimap when an enemy puts up a UAV, which happens really often throughout the game. The other notable perks are Restock, which replenishes your tactical and lethal grenades over a short period of time. High Alert, this makes the side of your screen pulsate when you're being aimed at off screen and heightens the sound of footsteps for someone using dead silence nearby. And then you've got Tempered, which means you are fully plated with 2 plates, meaning each plate gives you 75 HP instead of 50 HP, meaning you will use less plates in each engagement. And then moving on to perk 3. Amped is the key one here. This just means you'll switch between weapons much faster. This gives you a lot more time to react to an enemy when they surprise you, which, trust me, happens quite often in Warzone, especially when milliseconds are vital in this game. The only other worthwhile perk in this section is Combat Scout, which will highlight your enemies even through walls when they take damage from you, unless they've got the cold-blooded perk. But Combat Scout is only really worthwhile using with an LMG, as seeing your enemies through walls isn't that useful without high bullet penetration, which isn't found on assault rifles for the best part, without the FMJ attachment, which can only really actually be found on the Modern Warfare weapons, which in the current state of the game isn't that viable, as all the Cold War weapons are much more powerful. Well guys, thanks for watching this video. If you did enjoy it or learn something useful from this video, let me know by hitting the like button and commenting down below what you'd like to see next. Also, don't forget to subscribe with notifications on to make sure you do not miss out on another no nonsense guide.